to LOA Today. I'm Walt. I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And our friend Anne Marie is celebrating her birthday today, so she's going to be back in the next another week or so. But I still have somebody to talk to today who I know really well because he used to be a co-host here on the show, and he's had many return visits since then. He is David Strickel, also known as the purveyor of the Stream of David, although he doesn't stream as a trans channel much anymore. But David,
it streams naturally now, not
it streams naturally. Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. So you don't have to go into
it shows up when it shows up, is what I say.
Okay.
And you usually know when it shows up, or you
does
people that really know me knows when it shows up. What's that?
Does it surprise you? Does it ever show up like out of the blue? Like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't expect that.
No, I'm always, because I'm in a certain vibrational space when that happens. So I'll get really excited about a topic or really just in a real joyful place, and it just flows.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really great.
Yeah. I mean, I actually like it this way. That way it's more, if people are new to me and the teachings, it's more of just kind of a smooth transition into channeling than the format. And people like both. People that are really into channeling love it when you quiet your mind and you do the whole "we are here" thing, but I don't have to do that. So there's a bit of pageantry attached to that, I think, that some people really like, but I feel like I don't really have to do that. It just flows. So why not just allow the hybrid?
It is.
Hybrid of me in the stream. Yeah.
But I think it's even more fun. From my perspective, the fun part is that you've been continuing. I mean, you as a human being, you obviously continue to grow, and this is a sort of an evidence of the growth that you've gone through. You've got to the point now where you don't even have to do pageantry. You don't have to do smoke and mirrors. You can just go there. And
that's what my podcast has always been about, was my journey with the Stream of David. The very first episode of the Stream of David is the first time I've channeled publicly ever. And and if you listen, and a lot of people do, they discover it, they go listen to the whole thing, which is 250 episodes or so at this point. But you'll hear the whole progression of my channeling, the information that's flowing, what I do with that information, and then how I apply it in my own life.
Yeah.
And sometimes with great results, and sometimes I struggle with it, like everybody else.
Well, that's all of us, right? But cool. I mean,
because we still have an ego that's tugging us in the other direction. Yeah.
I mean, that's great to have done that many. How long have you been doing it now? How many years have you been doing the
I started in 2017, around this time.
5, 6 years?
September, October 2017.
5, 6 years. Yeah. 250 plus. Yeah. That's cool.
Not as long as you. Boy, my lips are
no. Yeah, well, I don't know if you heard, I actually recorded episode 2000 last month, so I had my big milestone then. That was kind of
congratulations.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, 2000. I'm talking about 250, and you're at 2000.
Well, 250 is impressive. It really is.
But you did, well, most people don't make it past 10 shows. Most people start a podcast and they peter out and it's gone. I've started a second podcast now, and we're keeping it going, but we're only at 15 episodes of the Taya Practice podcast.
Right.
But I do intend to keep that going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you had asked me when I first got started, when do you think you're going to get your 2000th episode done? My reaction probably would have been to laugh in your face. There was no way I could conceive of doing.
Were you doing 5 days a week for a while?
For a few years I was doing 5 days. In fact, 1 year.
I do one a week. In summer, I take summers off. I take holidays off. I go on hiatus. Well, the cool thing about a podcast, though, people discover you, and they don't really pay attention to the timeline. They just start listening.
No. Right.
And they go back into old episodes and all that. It's just the listeners that are loyal, they don't get anything new. And so I pop, even when I'm on hiatus, I'll pop a couple of new episodes in, so they get something over the summertime.
Yeah, if I don't publish at my usual schedule, I usually get an email. Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah, haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on?
Yeah. Right. Yeah,
it's nice. It's nice to be appreciated and missed when you're not producing. Yeah.
It was actually one of the surprising things that happened, because I think I've told you my story about how I started the podcast mainly to help myself, because I was struggling with so many things and I needed to understand how law of attraction works. So I figured, okay, I'll start a podcast. I'll bring on all the experts that can teach me stuff, and that worked. But then one day I started getting emails. I said, oh, there are listeners. I hadn't thought about that.
Actually listening to this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, what have I said?
Well, early on, I used to get, I would get emails, and I would get people that would tithe I don't
Really?
get that anymore. I don't know what I'm doing different now, but it was kind of surprised me because I was like, why are you sending me money? What is this? Well, it's a tithe. And I know what tithing is. I grew up in church,
Sure.
so I understand tithing, but there were people that wanted to tithe the stream to the stream,
Wow.
the stream usage. But oddly, I don't get it anymore. So I don't know.
Well,
I think there's more value in it now because I understand it better and teach it better. The sharing of the stream is the same. It hasn't changed at all, but the application has certainly evolved in my teaching it to other people through Taya Boot Camp.
Yeah, sure. But really, it makes a lot of sense to me in the sense that everybody who kind of enters this spiritual space, and that spiritual space is LOA today, what you do with the stream and Taya practice and so forth, and other people who are doing similar related kind of stuff. There's like a commonality to the belief systems and so forth that drive a lot of people who are in this space. And anyone who comes into that space often comes from a background that has religious background. And many people have kind of tied pieces of their religious beliefs into their new system. Which is really interesting.
Well, a lot of people believe in energy exchange, that if I'm receiving something of value to you, I'm going to pay it back in some way. And, I've never asked for tithing, certainly, and I never will, but, I understand that. And I understand from teaching boot camp that early on when I started doing boot camp, out of my generous nature, I put a few people in for free and they never finished.
Oh, really?
The people that put it for free didn't do the work. They didn't finish, but the people that pay gave it a lot of power because they paid a lot of money for it. And that's one of the things that really allows them to give a lot of power to it and stick with it to finish, because when you invest a lot of money in something, you're usually going to finish it. But the couple of people that said, well, I'll put you on scholarship and pay me when you can, they never finished. That was always interesting. And I didn't care. Well, once I give somebody an offer, I'm not going to go back and be resentful about it or anything like that. It's, I made the offer, they got in, and they just didn't finish.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe there was some consistency there. I thought that was interesting.
They were the ones who deprived themselves. You weren't deprived of anything, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think they just didn't, either they didn't give it power, or they sort of sabotaged themselves out of it.
Sure.
And, I've seen that over the years too. People do self-sabotage. Obviously, we all know that. And, sabotage
their own.
Yeah. Well, especially when you start messing with detuning your ego.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of that because your ego wants to stick around and it does stick around, but when you're trying to detune it and allow more source, basically I always say it's like this, you detune ego goes down, source steps in and takes its place. You're creating space for source to flow. Mm-hmm. And we are beings of source naturally. So the more we detune our ego, the more we become a living being of source, which I think is our natural state. I think all of this ego development is just a matrix driven human creation, a collective creation, that our ego doesn't have to be as overdeveloped as it is in our current society.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. The one thing I'm not really clear on for myself, maybe you have an insight on this, is, and we have often talked both with you and with other guests here on the show about, why is it that we come into this world? Why do we choose to come into this world? That's always a topic. And then once we kind of land on the idea, yes, we chose to come in here. The way I like to phrase it is, what on earth was I thinking? Or the other way of putting it is, what is it that we're hoping to have here as an experience? What is that experience all about? And to me, that's where ego comes in, because in order to have the experience, there needs to be an identity going on.
Yeah.
That's what
well, the purpose of coming into physical, and I always, for those of you listening, that I always speak as all this is exact fact, because I'm sharing it from the stream's perspective. If your belief system is contradictory, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I will always present something as this is absolutely 100% true, but I don't believe there is a singular truth for everybody. But if you listen to me, I will always present that way. So from the stream, the reason that source expresses in physical, which is what we are as expressions of source, is to come and have the polarized physical experience. So there are things in the physical world that we do not experience in non-physical that we like very much. Beautiful sights, beautiful sounds, things that, we like to eat, sexual encounters, all of these things that as physical beings we like. We have these things that we are motivated to experience while we're here. And the contrast of that is we also manifest challenges in our environment, but the challenges combined with the motivation to move through the experience expands our consciousness.
Right.
We become more intelligent, more sophisticated versions of ourselves in the having of the human experience or the life experience, because all life forms are doing the same thing, just on different levels.
Yes.
So here we are as human beings creating challenges. And the reason that we move through the challenges is because we believe there's a brighter day ahead, or relief, or another pint of ice cream, or whatever it is. There's something waiting for us that we're going to enjoy, but we've got to get through the challenge. But if you think about the things in your life that have made you a wiser, stronger person, if you've allowed that experience, are the challenges. Yeah. The hard times are the ones that really expand us. And it's really interesting in the Taya practice. We talk about detuning ego, and I've done enough of that work now to where I've really come to understand that the ego and the collective, what I call the matrix, the collective ego of humanity, we've created this notion that challenges and struggles and things like that shouldn't exist. And even a lot of spiritual believers think that we're creating some new earth environment that's going to be utopia, and we're all going to agree about everything all the time, and we're not going to have any challenges anymore. I think it sounds lovely, but I think you're kidding yourself if you think that we're not here for the challenges. And if you stop labeling them as should not be, you ease a whole lot of suffering.
I had an interesting experience with that over the weekend, because I got to visit with my brother and my sister and my niece in person for the first time since before the pandemic. So a bit of a family reunion going on there. And it was great. It was wonderful to connect with them and so forth and talk about all kinds of stuff. But there are always incidents whenever you have family get together. And there was in this case too. My sister and my sister-in-law, and I were having a conversation over breakfast at one point about something. I don't remember exactly what something that's going on today. Oh, I know. It was the strike, the actor strike going on in Hollywood. And they
rolled right into politics, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course. Well, that's kind of where it went, because they wanted to try to pin me down on, what I would say to either side. If I either took the union side or if I took management side, what would I say to have resolved the strike? And of course, my reaction immediately was, well, it's not up to me to resolve the strike. So that's, it's kind of a self-defeating purpose, but okay, I'll try to take that position. And so I said, well, let's see, if I was in the union's position, I think I'd kind of talk to them about, well, here's some alternative ways to think about that. And as I was talking, they got really upset with me, because they said, well, you're avoiding the question. I said, what do you mean? Well, it turned out the reason they thought I was avoiding the question was because I wasn't taking sides.
Because you were appreciating all things.
Yeah, which you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. But it's just the Matrix telling us that. Well, if you don't take a side, then you're taking a side and you're part of the problem. Yeah. But then if you really think about it, well, no, that's not true. I can be appreciative. First of all, it's not my battle. I'm not in that battle personally. No. And I can appreciate, we were at a hotel in San Diego just a couple of weeks ago, and some union protests broke out in front of this nice 5-star hotel. They've had the giant inflatable rat and the guy on the bullhorn because the hotel was non-union. And I said, what's going on out there? And she goes, oh, it's a union. They come over and cause trouble every once in a while because we're not unionized here. And I said, well, do you wish you were in a union? It was the front desk person. And she says, I like working for this company. I like everything about it. We don't feel the need to be unionized. Oh, and I appreciated that. I'm like, that's a nice attitude to have, and then you can't help but think, well, then what's the union's motivation? Well, there's money involved. Right. And so I backed up and I said, okay, they're a little annoying to me right now, but they're doing what they believe is right by protesting this non-union place, even though they're probably bothering the employees, more than the management. And, they believe strongly that everyone should be unionized. But the employees that work there are not, or at least the one that I talked to, and she seemed to speak for more than just herself, didn't have that opinion. So it's interesting to zoom out and just try to see, okay, what's their angle? What's their perspective? Everyone's just trying to get ahead. Really. Yeah, that's the key. If you appreciate all of that, I'm like you. I don't have a side there, but it's really upsetting to someone in the Matrix who believes you have to take a side.
Yeah.
And so often on things that don't really directly, I get that everything can indirectly, affect us, but not directly.
Yeah.
People that are so upset about trans people these days, I always say, well, how is that directly impacting you?
I don't
how
even
is this
understand
really
why
impacting
indirectly. To me, I wouldn't really get it. Why would you care? It doesn't make any sense.
Like why is this such a hot button topic? And I understand that politically they just sort of spin a wheel and this is who's it right now. And this is who the boogeyman's going to be for, a few years. But, why, but people get so bent out of shape about stuff. Why? Why are you so bent out of shape about this? Because somebody else is telling you to. And that happens on both sides. For sure.
But it does show the importance of perspective. I love the fact that you brought that out, because truly the people who have this whole big thing about trans people do have a perspective, and it's a perspective that they seem to share because they seem kind of united on it. Yeah. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they are united on it. Let's just say that they're loud about it. They're loud and energetic.
Yes. Well, you can almost predict what the opinion's going to be just based on, where they're starting to head in the conversation. And it's unfortunately, it tends to be very predictable. So when you're unpredictable, that makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You could say, well, I understand how this is something that you're not familiar with, and it might be a little frightening to you because it's just different and it's foreign. Oh my God, you're a bigot. Well, no, I'm just saying that I understand. We would just think how much better if we wanted to move toward utopia, which I don't think is possible, that common ground and trying to see the perspective of the other person is such a useful instrument that it just seems like it's used less and less and less.
I got to tell you this part. This is really cool. When my sister and my sister-in-law were getting heated with me, they accused me of compartmentalizing everything. I thought, that's an interesting accusation. I mean, there's truth to that. In a sense, that's kind of what I do. I compartmentalize in the sense that I just don't give energy to certain things. I just see from a different perspective.
Yeah, that's maddening to somebody that believes, that's developed a belief system that these political things absolutely control their lives. And if it doesn't control their lives, then they're worried about everybody else.
Right.
Well, I'm fine no matter what, but I have to worry about all these other people that are going to be negatively impacted by that. I would rather empower people and say nobody has to be negatively impacted by that. But I know that's a hard thing to wrap your head around if you're so indoctrinated into the matrix that you really believe that your well-being and everyone else's well-being depends on who the president is or, something like that.
I don't know if you remember this, but back in the 1980s, there was a pop psychology book that came out called I'm Okay, You're Okay.
Mm-hmm. I remember the title. I don't know. I haven't read the book, but I know the title.
Yeah. It gained a lot of popularity. A lot of people talked about it. I remember being very interested in it for a time until I saw that there were certain things that didn't really address well. But there was, as usual, whenever you have something like that coming out, there's also some counterculture that comes along that finds some way to play with it. And somebody else came with a book that said, I'm okay, you're not so hot. And that kind of stuff we were just talking about.
Then there's I'm okay and you shouldn't exist.
Right.
The same person could write all three and do very well. Capture one.
That's right. Yes. It just shows how important perspective really is. I got to tell you, I think that's largely happened as a result of my experience in Thai boot camp, although I think it partly happened before that. But I've really come to appreciate the value of perspective and seeing other people's perspectives. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of the source.
What does it truly mean to, again, the stream says source is appreciation of all things.
Right. Yeah.
Period. And that's another reason that the trans channeling only goes so far, because what the bottom line answer is going to be to everything. There's none of this. You should do this and you shouldn't do that. There's guidance if you want to be happy. There's guidance toward that. But at the end of the day, the path to happiness is appreciation of all things. And you can apply that in your life.
There was actually one conversation I can remember. This was when you were on as a co-host, and we had like 2 or 3 months there where just every episode I was just having the conversation with the stream. So you were trans channeling, I was having the conversation, and I was getting all this reams of information coming to me, and I was trying to process it, turn it into a conversation, and often it worked out very well. One time I remember I don't even remember how I got onto this track, but I got onto the track of, let's see if we can get the stream to validate or at least to talk about some of the basic scientific principles that science lives by. So I started with Newton's laws of thermodynamics. I said, we'll go with that one. And one of the laws of thermodynamics is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So I presented that to the stream, and the stream came back to me with an answer that was a little bit ambiguous. So, I mean, like, they were trying to redirect attention away from that so-called law into just a general discussion, general acknowledgement of expansion. But I kind of pinned them down on it and ultimately got them to agree that, kind of like what you just said, the expansion is continuous. And so I said, so does that mean that energy is constantly being increased and created? And they said, yes. And I said, well, that's really interesting because that means that, what man's science holds to be true apparently isn't actually true. And this is fairly revolutionary. I mean, this is something that mainstream science would actually have a little trouble with today, but it's a fairly significant thing because the laws of thermodynamics as science understands them explain a whole bunch of stuff as science understands it. And if you take one of those and rewrite it into something else, you basically have undermined one of the basic principles of modern science. It's a really interesting thing when you do that. Because when you do that, now all of a sudden I wonder, well, what else are we making false assumptions about? Yeah,
well, it's the expansion, and the way I understand it is, but the issue there is that we're, science is viewing the universe through the human lens.
Right.
So we're perceiving linear time and moving through this linear experience because that's how we grow, is having this linear experience where we have a challenge and we solve it and we move on through the challenge and we expand our consciousness in that process. But when the expansion occurs, it is now expanded and we are now in that reality. So when energy is created, it's not really like there's nothing and there's energy, but it expands. But as it expands, we are up to speed with that new reality and we're not perceiving it as being expanded even.
Well, it also kind of raises
because we're expanding with it.
It raises the question, if energy expands, what does it mean to say that energy expands?
Yeah. Well, science does say the universe is expanding.
Yes.
The physical, so they're acknowledging that the physical expression is expanding. What they're not connecting,
they observe heavenly bodies moving away from each other. So that's how they conclude that.
Right. They're observing that expansion, and we see in physical how we expand and age and all that sort of thing. So it's the human perception is that the physical we can see expanding, but the energy behind all of it, and everything has energy behind it, right? Everything is energetic first and then becomes a physical expression of energy. We're not aware of the creation or the expansion because we are of that. So as it expands, we are up to speed with whatever point we're at in the expansive process.
Yes.
So it seems like it was always there. Plus, it seems like it was always there.
If energy expands, first of all, what is energy? I guess is perhaps an important immediate question to ask. But then once you've asked and answered that question, when you say that energy expands, what does that mean? Does that mean like electrons move farther apart? When we say that energy expands,
I don't have a scientific mind, so I have to take.
I don't know. I'm speculating just for the fun of speculation. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, the way I understand it, and the way that the words that the stream uses is think of it as something has become a more sophisticated version of itself. So when they say expansion, they're not talking about, the physical expression is just a physical expression as we perceive it. When they're talking about expanding energy, so you have something that, that there's so much intelligence in this pen, but the pen is becoming a wiser version of itself.
And what does that mean?
Becoming more sophisticated. But think of it in terms of, as a human being, our brain is going to stay the same physical size, but we're expanding our awareness of things as we move through life. So maybe that makes more sense. That expansion of consciousness. We are wiser beings, hopefully, as we age through the human experience, even if we're smart when we're young. And I think a lot of times, in a lot of ways, the younger generation is smarter than any other generation because they're born up to speed with the intelligence that exists in their world. But that intelligence exists because those that came before became wiser. So they're
already been shocked for the current generation to know that the one coming after is going to be even smarter.
Right. Even smarter than them. And of course, when you're young, you don't get that. You think you're just the most brilliant thing that ever existed. And, I'm so much smarter than these old people. But the old people have a different type of intelligence in the form of wisdom, life experience. They may not understand, a computer the same way or, AI or any of those things, but they do have wisdom that no young person's going to have. I mean, look at the things that the people that are considered geniuses today, and I don't necessarily agree or disagree, but like a Mark Zuckerberg or who's the Twitter guy, the Tesla guy, Elon Musk. You know, people think they're geniuses, and then we watch them do some really boneheaded things.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of intelligence, but they don't necessarily have wisdom. And
is it that, or is it simply that anytime that we do any kind of growth, we do it on a non-linear path? I mean, life is non-linear. You know, how many people get engaged in the idea of applying law of attraction in their lives, and they say, okay, I want to attract X. And then for X to show up, they have to go over to Z over here and Q prime and then take 5 steps back over on S. And then after about 25 of those steps, all of a sudden X shows up. That's the reality of what we're dealing with.
Yeah. So the lack of wisdom a lot of times is more ego and less source. Source is wisdom. So all new thought is a product of source. So to be somebody like that, they're morphing between ego, the driver, you know, they're driven to do these things, and then allowing enough source in to allow the new thought to be created. And that's how they create things. So it's this dance, and they really appreciate their ego because their ego got them to where they are. And then they get to a certain point where they don't want to let go of the ego. Why the hell would I do that? I'm a billionaire and I'm, you know, celebrated around the world and maybe hated around the world too, but people are noticing me and I like that. So why do I want to, you know, detune? They would be the last two individuals that probably want to detune their ego unless it's really causing a lot of suffering. And we don't know that. So, you know, you hold on to that ego and it actually robs you of the wisdom of aging because you just don't feel the need for that experience. But at some point, I do think it hits home.
That reminds me too of how we as humans have a tendency to believe that we know what goes on in other people's heads. But as you pointed out, you know, we don't know what's going on in their heads.
You never know what's going on. The only way that the only indicator is what their life is going like. You know, if somebody says they do all the right things and their life is still a mess, that's an indicator of what's really going on internally.
But that's part of how we come to the conclusion that we do know what's going on in their heads, and we take lots of.
But you really don't. You know, there's indicators, and you can make that judgment. But at the end of the day, I don't think we really do.
You still don't know. It's
well, it changes. We're vibrational beings. We're mercurial. It changes all the time. So you may observe somebody on their worst day, and we all have seen examples of that. Somebody, Will Smith, you know, beloved, celebrated actor that everybody thinks is just the greatest, and he gets up and slaps somebody. In front of millions of people, you know, he was down his spiral that day for sure. And I'm sure, you know, is living to regret it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But and there's another key point right there, that our energies are constantly in flux. The idea that we can vibrate at just one vibration, that alone is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way to do that.
There are people that are pretty good at presenting themselves that way. But that's not truth. You know, they're curating a public image, and with social media, that is really becoming a challenge for everyone. You know, you just learn things about people that we used to not ever learn, and public figures just don't have privacy, period, because there's just always somebody there to rat them out.
Well, that plus also somebody who creates a consistent persona online, like my friend Joel Elston, who does the Tuesday shows with me now. Told me a story one time about a young woman who had created a tremendously successful, I think it was a YouTube personality, YouTube or Instagram, one or the other. But this, you know, really fabulously successful personality, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, all that kind of thing. But the personality was, I always hesitate to frame it this way, but I'll frame it this way because I think she framed it this way. The personality was in her internal discussion with herself, was better than she was. It was an idealized person that she could never be. And she actually, in her private life, became depressed because she didn't want anybody to ever know that she was.
If you become successful, then you've created your own monster, and that you're never going to live up to being this guru that you've presented.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't bothered to present myself as a guru from day one, because I knew that was never going to happen.
Good move. Good move. I like that.
Yeah. I'm there. You know, if that's what it takes to be successful, I'm just not willing to do that.
Right.
So, you know, I'm going to put the stream out there, and imperfect David out there is the one that's applying the teachings. And if that works for you, great. And if it doesn't, I totally understand. You need a guru. At this point in your life, the guru is offering you what you need until you find out the guru is imperfect. And then you decide, whether you want to continue to follow or not. And people survive that. You know, there are gurus that survive scandal, certainly.
Sure. Oh yeah. well, it isn't so much whether the guru survives the scandal. The question is whether or not the guru survives their own idealized self. In other words, once they've set themselves up in a certain way and they find that they really aren't, they can never really match that persona, how do they handle that? Does it tear them down, or do they find a way to come to peace with it?
Well, a lot of people, they take it and make lemonade out of it, right? This is a whole new version of me, and people appreciate authenticity, even if it's remorseful authenticity after the fact. I think people sometimes really respond to that. I think there's always a solution to everything. Nobody is ever down and out forever. As long as we're drawing a breath, there's always another day. I know there's always another day.
There's an interesting secondary topic that goes with this, and I think of this because it came up in conversation with my family this past weekend, the topic of AI, artificial intelligence, particularly with the tools that are now becoming publicly available to make it possible to have software do everything from write a paper for you to create a logo to create artwork they're able to do these amazing things.
The world is about to be ran by AI for sure, and it's really going to change humanity. And I think that this changing time. I didn't mean to totally derail your topic.
No, that's right. That's okay.
I think it's part of the reason the stream is flowing the way that the stream is flowing, not just through me, but through other channels, and me seeking to deliver the message with as little ego as possible has delivered a lot of clarity around that sort of thing. That, this is a turning point. COVID was a turning point for humanity. All these things are interrelated, that humanity is wising up to the matrix that it created. And as we seek to break free from it, it's seeking to draw us back in. But ultimately, if we can break free from the matrix, we're going to create a scenario for ourselves where trusting your abundance is really your only option, because there's not going to be a typical job path for people the way that there has been since industrialization. We're going to have to trust our abundance, because there's not going to be employment the way that there is right now, because we don't need it.
It's going to evolve.
It'll create a whole new set of problems, just like everything else does, and things that have to be solved and done. But you're not going to be. My father always told me, because I wasn't a particularly good student, I've told this on here before. His saying to me was, "Well, the world needs ditch diggers too," but the world doesn't. I have to tell you a funny thing that just happened.
Okay.
So not a funny thing, a funny twist to something that you might not think is funny. My father passed away about 2 weeks ago. My father died on the 15th of last month. And last week I was at his funeral, and we were at the funeral, and the grave was over on Galveston Island, and we'd had a storm the day before. And at the end of the funeral director came over and grabbed my brother and myself and my stepmother and kind of huddled us and said, "Just so you know, the grave's full of water." So they couldn't do the graveside service. We had to go to a mausoleum, and they couldn't bury him. And there was just something about that and that ditch digger thing that I've always shared. I'm like, I think this is a little sign from my father, just a little hello, that, the world needs ditch diggers too. And then here's, the grave is full of water, and he couldn't go right in. But
that kind of ties into the point I was going to raise earlier. Let me go back to that. Because when I brought up the whole concept of AI, one of the things that came up in the conversation I had with my family over the weekend was that there are a number of famous people whom AI has been able to replicate. I'm not sure if that's the right word.
Oh, they replicated the stream. As obscure as the stream of David is in comparison to like Oprah or Tony Robbins or something like that. When I first got ChatGPT, I said, write a poem in the voice of the stream of David.
Oh, wow.
I think that's all I said. In about 3 seconds, a poem pops up. And if you read the poem, it's in the same language that the stream uses. It talks about abundance and talks about, laws of the universe. It's like something that they would have done. And I guess in a way, if you think about it, I guess they did.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And so here I am channeling the stream. ChatGPT can do the same thing. So why do we need me? Maybe that'll be my retirement plan. I'll just have ChatGPT do all the podcasts.
Yeah, right. Well,
but literally, I did that. I have the poem. I have to share the poem with you.
I think it's cool. Yeah,
it's really cool. It was seconds. It just boom, there it is. And again, it's able to compile things from the internet that are as obscure as the stream of David and such a fast, and make a rhyming poem. It was poetry.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Rhyming poem, you know, but it was really cool. It was really, really cool that it did that.
Well, taking another step into this whole AI reproducing humans motif, one of the things that has occurred, of course, people are aware of the war in Ukraine, and Russia invaded Ukraine, and Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, kind of the leader behind the whole thing. Apparently, there are some AI hacks who have figured out that there are a bunch of Vladimir Putin videos out there that are of actually different people. And they put them side by side, and they show things like the chin is different from this video to that video, and the eyes are different from this video. So which one is, well, the real Vladimir Putin?
What's the real one? Well, if you're that level of dictator, it's probably a good idea to have some stand-ins, right?
Well, beyond that, I mean, there was another one. They did the same thing with former President Barack Obama and this guy who was presenting.
I think somebody claimed that Melania Trump wasn't really Melania Trump, that she had that she was impersonated. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, the Barack Obama, they had 4 different Barack Obamas all giving the same talk, and none of them was the real Barack Obama. It was pretty intense. But my point is, as this happens more and more, and as people become more and more aware that the videos they're seeing of their leaders or their top entertainment figures
may not even be them.
Right. What if they find out that it's not them, and they start to distrust? They start to say, well, wait a minute, who am I following here?
Well, yeah, humanity will be scrambling through this. And that's why I didn't mean just trust your abundance in terms of a paycheck. I meant trust our abundance in terms of moving forward as a human being in time of possible chaos. And I don't like to spin conspiracy theories and fear and stuff like that at all, because I don't think that you have to give that power. I think, like all things throughout history, there will be people that will survive whatever chaos comes, and there will be many that succumb to it, whether that's now or 20 years from now or 50, I don't know. But the world is changing for sure, and we're not going back to the way things were. Pandora's box is open now. We can create voices and images, that look like us. You don't even know if it's really us right now. Right? I don't think AI would bother to recreate us.
Videos out and compare. Is this the David Strickel nose, or is that somebody else's nose that's on there?
Yes. You never know. You never know. So the world's going to get really interesting, and certainly there are going to be intelligence that could start wars and fight wars and do all kinds of damage and destruction. And certainly there are evil people out there, quote unquote, that would love to create, there are anarchists that would love to create some chaos, with these tools. So we're moving into a territory where it's going to develop faster, or it already is, than we can possibly regulate it. And of course, the regulators are all 90 years old. Now, what's Wi-Fi again? That's what we've got going on in our government. So,
right.
I don't know what the future holds. The only thing I can do is roll with whatever I'm experiencing and appreciation of it. This is what we're doing now. That's my favorite saying. House burns down. This is what we're doing now. My father is on life support. This is what we're doing now. Have to cancel my, plans and go fly home for a funeral, to bury my father. This is what we're doing now. And it creates a very, very different life experience. Whatever's going on is just what we're experiencing. And if you don't label it as should not be, then you'd be shocked how little you suffer in things.
Right. Right. What we're really describing and discussing here is a methodology, a way of thinking and being and doing that takes all the angst out of dealing with all these changes.
Yeah. I have surgery. I have major surgery coming up in a week. Wednesday of next week, I have I've never had surgery other than dental surgery in my life. And it'll be my first major surgery. I have a hospital stay. I've never stayed in the hospital other than when I was born. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward that it's going to be an amazing experience. I'm going to meet new people. It's going to be fun. Parts of it won't. I haven't completely detuned the catheter.
I don't blame you.
I haven't had that done yet. So I'm like, I saw the nurse on Friday. I was just prepping for all this. And I kind of started asking about that. I'm like, I know they do that because I'm going to be out and all that sort of thing. And she kind of got into it a little bit, and she's like, everybody does it and everybody survives it. I said, I know. It is what it is. So I've got some detuning to do around that, but the rest of it I'm pretty much down with. But that's how I live my life now is, okay, this is what we're rolling into. This is what we're experiencing. There's nothing happening here that can end me. because I'm an eternal expression source, just like everybody else. And I always say, and even if it does in me, I won't be aware of it. So who cares? This is what I'm experiencing. This is the experience I'm rolling through now. And I'm excited to have the surgery because it's something that I need to do, because I have back pain every day. And I've done a lot of things mentally to stave off the surgery for 20 years, but now it's time. And I feel really good about it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel good about the doctor, the facility, all of it. So.
And ultimately, that's the goal anyway. I mean, anybody who understands how law of attraction works, how vibration works, you want to feel good. Well, plus anybody who understands the difference between pain and pleasure, they know that you want to feel good too. But the point is, when you learn how to feel good just through the perspective, just through the way you look at things, you really can get there. You can actually get to the point where you feel good about anything.
I haven't found anything yet. And again, now I've had a close family member pass away with this mindset practice. Had my home burned down with the mindset practice. I've had challenges come and go with the mindset practice. And I report back to all of you every time. So I don't know what's left. I had an interesting discussion with my stepmother, because she was married to my father for 48 years. Wow. So now she's adjusting to being a new widow, and it's, a lot for her. She was a primary caregiver to my father. She's definitely a caregiving type person. We rented a house at the beach for everybody to stay in, and she was constantly cleaning and taking care of everybody. It's just her nature to do that. Well, now, she doesn't have my father. Luckily, one of the odd things, they got a puppy right before he died. These two 80-somethings decided they needed a puppy. And my father literally went into the hospital the day after they got the puppy.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. So we had a day with the puppy, but he was so excited about the puppy. That's like his last hoorah was getting this dog. So none of us resent the dog. It was, the best thing in the situation. We'll all make sure the dog is okay no matter what. Yeah, but sure. She expressed to me concern because my sister is not married and doesn't have any children. And, of course I'm with Michael and we don't have children. And, there's this idea that if you don't have any children, when you get old, you're not going to have anyone to take care of you. Mm. And I always said, well, that's lovely, but it's not a good reason to have kids. There's other ways to take care of yourself at the end. And I have said that I hope maybe
people might actually pick that as a reason to have kids. I'm not
personally, I don't think that's a good enough reason to have kids. And I didn't have a strong, I always say I love infants, but everything beyond the infant, So anyway, I have said that I hope that if this is the way that, if everyone's really worried about being old and alone at the end, I hope that I'm the last one standing, because I think I would handle being alone at the end and being in the facility, not knowing anybody and just making the best time of it I could possibly make. I think that's how I would handle that. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, oh, this is so sad, I'm all alone and I'm going to die alone at my house, or, whatever it is. It's just it's just what happens. The Matrix is the thing that teaches us, oh, that's so bad. They shouldn't go that way. You should die peacefully surrounded by loved ones. And thankfully for everyone else, my father did go that way. My sister, half sister, and my stepmother were with him when they took him off life support. Mm-hmm. But if I'm all alone, I'm at peace with that. And I think we can all get there to being at peace with what is, regardless of what is. And I say that because not only am I drawing from my experience, but the people that I've worked with in boot camp over the years that have faced things that humanity says are the worst of the worst, that changed, they evolved their perspective of what happened from this was a horrible, terrible tragedy that I'm suffering in to this is an experience. And I've expanded my consciousness in the having of the experience.
For somebody who's very concerned about being alone at the end, I would also point out, well, they don't have to be. I mean, there are some 8 billion people on this planet. What connections do you want to make in your last year? Because I don't want to talk a lot about my sister, but she prefers her own company. I'll leave it at that. And I like my own company as well. I mean, I understand. I don't mind being alone. Mm-hmm. Michael went out of town for a whole week and I was here with the dogs, which is not exactly alone, but I don't mind being in silence and by myself. And if I die alone, I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is just how it's going to play out, and it'll be my manifestation. And it just, that concept, I didn't mean to go this heavy. Sorry. I pull us right into death every time.
But I like to go into people's biggest fears, because I think if we can tackle the biggest fears, then the little stuff is so much easier. Just like in boot camp, we go after the root transgressors. And once you detune the root transgressors in boot camp, all the little transgressors of your life are so easy to clear up. Like, wow, if I can get past that big thing that happened to me, all these other little collection of little things that I've been judging all this time, they just sort of clear up on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I was trying to point out that, I think your approach is great. I love your approach. I was just trying to point out you can really achieve that feeling of peace with whatever's going on in a lot of different ways. There's not just one way to get there. I mean, literally, if you would prefer to have other people around, you can have other people around, attract them. That's part of what law of attraction is for, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you are creating your reality. So I'm not trying to create necessarily being all alone at the end, but I'm making peace with it, because a lot of times our greatest fears are always running in the background, and we manifest versions of our greatest fears even when we're trying not to think about it. So that's why I like to detune these things. I like to detune the things in front so that fear is not.
Yeah, the real question isn't so much then how do you feel about being alone? The real question is, what's it going to take to let go of the fear? Because it's the fear that's really interfering. It's the fear that's messing you up. The fear that's getting you into a space that you don't really feel good at all. So what can you do to let go of the fear is really what the ultimate question is. And that's really what you're addressing when you're in boot camp. You're trying to figure out, okay, how can I let go of this thing? This thing.
Yeah, what am I giving power to? Because whatever you've got running in your subconscious mind, you're giving power to it. So if you're fearful about politics or your demise or your marriage or your business or your financial well-being, you're fearful about AI taking over. If you detune that, then it's like, hey, whatever AI does is going to be in service of my well-being, because my well-being is guaranteed as long as I don't block it. I think the Abraham people might know the word resistance. You know, that's what that is your ego is blocking the natural well-being of source that's flowing. You don't think that AI is more powerful, that you think AI is more powerful than the well-being of the source of all creation? Of course it's not. AI is created from source, as all things are. So source would not create something to destroy an experience that expands it, which is the human experience, which is the earthly experience.
We were talking about that expansion thing before, and I'm glad you brought the word in again, because I wanted to go into it just a little bit deeper. Because the question I always ask myself is, what's doing the expanding? I mean, you were talking earlier about how the expansion is really related to the increase in wisdom that can come with experience. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Well, and that's why ego exists, to create the challenges, because we get really creative when we perceive something as a challenge. In fact, just about everything humanity has created, it is a solution to what we perceived as a deficiency or a problem.
Right.
So that's expansion of consciousness. Having a painful experience and moving through. I always say, if nothing else, think about my father dying. You know, and he's not my mother died 10 years ago. So you don't know what it's like to have a parent die until you have a parent die. And then once you have that experience, then you've done that. And my father was very different than my mother, and I wasn't particularly close to either one of them, more so to my father than my mother, because I was cut out from her life for the last 20 years of her life. But I had the experience of my mother passing, and then I knew what it was like. So when my father passed, it just wasn't as heavy, because I've been through this before. I know what this is like. I've been through this with Michael last year. Both of his parents died last year within 5 months of one another. So, you know, we move through these experiences, and as long as we're not labeling them as should not be, which I didn't with my father, he's 83 years old. You know, it was very easy to make peace with his departure from physical. Then now I know what it's like. And I'm a more sophisticated being in the having of the experience, the whole experience, the traveling there and going through the funeral and being in the receiving line at what most people call the wake. We called it the visitation. Actually sharing a house with my brother and my sister and my stepmother, which hasn't happened since maybe the mid 80s, early 80s. We've been under the same roof for one night since then. And that was an interesting experience. And we all, it was just enough time. We all got along. It was all wonderful. We didn't get political. Nobody talked about strikes or politics or everybody was on good behavior, because we're all very different. We're all very, very different. So it could have been really interesting.
So essentially everybody who is involved in that gathering had found ways to respect different perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. There wasn't anything. There was no, nothing. There was no friction at all. It was a very brief period of time, which was probably
Sure, which helps.
Spending one night is perfect. That's what you want to do, is just keep it to one night. And we went out, we had a lovely dinner, and nothing weird came up at all. And, it was fine. It was a really nice experience. See you in 10 years.
10 years.
Once a decade is what we need. It's good. No, it's good. But my brother is very Christian. He actually did the eulogy, part of the eulogy, and he did the graveside, very Christian focused.
Mm-hmm.
My sister is more or less, I think, agnostic. Thinks that what I do is insane. My brother won't even talk about it. So again, we're all very, very, very different. So you got a Christian, an atheist, and a spiritual channel walk into a bar.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like, right?
You get the Strickel children. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's also part of the fun of family gatherings, because we all start from a family where there is a shared set of values of some kind, or maybe there might be dysfunctional values, but there's some sort of set of values that is being shared by whoever is the adult head or adult heads of the family. And that's the starting point. But from that starting point, people, they resist, they push, they pull, they do all kinds of stuff, and they start growing in different directions, so that even for those who stay close to each other, they still have the differences that emerge over time.
Sure.
And
I think that's a good sign of our eternal nature, that we're more than just a physical being, because my brother and I, same parents, same household, same economic status, same religion, and look how different we turned out.
Right.
Vastly different. And but on paper, we should have been very alike.
Yes.
But I was different. We had different personalities from the get-go. And what's that personality? That personality is essentially your soul. It's that unique energy that runs you, that isn't identifiable in physical, because it's not physical.
Yeah. One of those things that science loves to do is to take identical twins, and do various kinds of studies on identical twins from the empirical assumption that if they're identical, if they have genetic structures that are identical, then you should be able to see certain commonalities to them. And then what they do is they spend a lot of time following what happens to those identical twins and noticing how everything goes different. If they can find anything that's in common, and say, we finally found it. We found a commonality that actually shows you for identical twins, you're going to have this kind of thing. And they get all excited about it. I think it's really fascinating, because I keep wondering, at what point is science going to recognize that identical twins aren't identical?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you said that. I had this girl that worked for me years ago when I was in the home furnishing interior design business, and I'd hired her, and I really liked her, but I hired her. She was a waitress at Hooters. She'd been a waitress at Hooters, and she went to design school. She made money. She said, you know what? I didn't have family money, so I had to support myself somehow. So I went to design school. I waited tables there. I loved it. It was great. It was like a big, happy family. They treated me really well. I made lots of money, and now I want to go do this. So I hired her, and I love to hire people that waited tables, because it's great, social skills and negotiation skills. It's fantastic. And so I hired her, and she was really successful working for me. And then her sister came to visit her. Her sister was in medical school. And so, you got one that's a waitress at Hooters and another one's in med school, very different. And, one's now an artistic, interior design person, and the other a doctor. She was in residency at this point, and they looked exactly alike, but, vastly different career fields and personalities. But then when they laughed, exactly the same laugh. Wow. I didn't say it was creepy, but I remember thinking it's almost creepy how they laughed identically, and I'm, oh my God, you two laughed just alike. It was the same laugh. It was really interesting how they had that. And then again, identical twins grew up together, raised exactly the same, and developed to be very different people.
Yes. Yes. Well, also, you don't have to be identical in order to have an identical trait. In fact, you can actually inherit it, it turns out, which I learned when my father passed, because my now ex-wife pointed out to me shortly after he passed that I had inherited his laugh. My dad had a particular way of laughing that I never engaged in until after he passed. And I didn't do it consciously. I'm not sure. I think I kind of absorbed it in a sense.
Yeah.
But he used to laugh like this. And every once in a while, I'll find myself going, just like he did. But I didn't do that up until the point he passed. So I think I could honestly say I kind of inherited his life.
Well, I think that DNA that, scientists measure DNA. I think that vibration is present within us, that we're very attached to our parents. No matter what, we're attached to our biological birth parents. We have traits from them, but I think that's what makes us a unique individual. You have this eternal version of you that is energetic, that projects in and chooses vibrationally a set of parents and circumstances to project into. And then you're going to take on some of their traits to create a unique being. You're not just the combination of the two of them. You're that and more.
Yeah, that is what is cool about the whole thing, because you combine the genetic material together and even science.
It's so brilliantly designed. When people want to argue that there's no intelligence behind creation, of course there is. How can you not think that? I mean, you might not totally understand it. I get that. But of course there's intelligence behind it. Our human body is so complex. You don't think there's any intelligence behind that? It just happened. Well, it happened as a response to the environment, right? And the circumstances, and continues to evolve as a response to that. But what's thinking those changes? Something's thinking them. We evolve through consciousness. We evolve through, okay, we need to develop more this way to survive in this environment.
Interesting you mentioned that, because I remember one time it was a conversation that I had with the stream here on the program, and we were kind of talking along these same lines. And I remember saying something about, thought creating vibration and how does that work in non-physical. And the stream's response, I don't remember the exact response, but the response was something along the lines of, well, we don't actually use thought. Do you have any recollection of that, or does that resonate in any way? Because I don't remember what the details were. I'm kind of curious if you can pull that out.
Well, I think it's that there's no preference there. When we think of thought, we think from our ego perspective, which is preference usually. Do you think you want to do this, or think you want to do that, or what's your opinion? They don't have an opinion and they don't have a preference. So the consciousness is that consciousness at its core is just well-being and appreciation of all things. It's not complex. We make it complex because our ego, our human mind, wants to make things complex sometimes, just because we think it must be some mysterious, really complex thing that we've got to figure out. But I think when we get down to the core of it, source is just abundance that creates expansion. And in that creation of expansion, that's creation of all things. It's appreciation of all things, because source creates all things. We have this concept of evil that humanity created, but evil is really just a product of ego in separation from source. But the things that we consider evil are also creations of source.
Yeah.
And I even remember in church being taught that God and Satan are really the same thing, which isn't so popular anymore, because people need to have that. Oh, there's got to be evil force and evil. There's got to be something that we can label evil to make sense of the world, to make sense of senseless things. But that's from a very judgmental perspective. If you are appreciative of all things as source is, then nothing's wrong and nothing's bad and nothing is evil. And the reason I like to really harp on that point is because we are the ones that are keeping the stuff that we consider evil alive in our damning of it, in our focus upon it. And notice how the things that we label as evil and bad and should not be don't get solved. They don't go away.
Right.
It just gives us something to judge, basically.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If you get around people that are, they're really deep in the matrix, and most people are, there's nothing wrong with being deep in the matrix. But, as you experienced and you don't have that opinion, look out. You're going to get canceled, because how dare you not think that XYZ is evil? And I get it. I mean, there's things that I don't want to happen. I don't want to see, animals and children and old people be harmed. Of course not.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think by demonizing it and labeling it as should not be is unrealistic, because it is. How can you label something should not be that is? And I love that point. It is. So what is your judgment of it doing? Are you solving in your judgment of it? Well, if you're lowering your vibration in your judgment of it, your solving power is is going away. You're muting your solving power. The power to solve things, the power of new thought is in a higher vibration, which is appreciation of it. So it's insane in the Matrix to say, well, I cannot begin to appreciate someone abusing a child or an animal. Of course not. But if you seek to understand the nature of the abuse or the abuser, you soften that judgment a little bit. And in the softening of the judgment, you're no longer giving it power. And that's what humanity is a long way from figuring out, but at some point we will. And I would love it if from my ego perspective, if Taya were the vehicle that would help us figure that out. It could be, but I don't think everybody's ready for that.
Well, it certainly will be for some people. That much I can say.
Yeah. And for those of us that, we're experiencing what that feels like, and it feels amazing to move through life, not judging anything as should not be, and actually finding joy in every experience, even the things that are troubling.
One last thought that I wanted to bring in, because I see we're past our hour, but I wanted to bring this one in. Of course we are. Yeah. Yeah, it just flies right along. But I remember one time when the stream, again, I was questioning the stream on the show, and the stream expressed the idea that this whole world of contrast and polarity, where you have good and evil and all that kind of stuff, was in a sense an experiment. And the experiment has proven to be successful. The question was, is it possible to create a world that is self-sustaining, that can actually create ongoing expansion through the experience of plus and minus, good and evil, positive and negative? And turns out that the answer to that is yes. So what we live in is a successful experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with Earth exactly the way it is. There's nothing wrong. It's presented to us as wrong. And that keeps more wrong going, which is, again, that's perfection. So all the news channels that are constantly peddling fear, that's exactly what's supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
So we're not going to, but there are examples of other physical environments that are not like Earth. Nothing is like Earth. Earth is unique. That they are more sophisticated in their experiencing of their vibrational flow. And we can be as well. And that's what Taya is all about. It's not about solving every problem and moving to perfection. It's about meeting the obstacles of joy. That's why I always share, my life is not without obstacles. I'm not a perfect guru. I'm not not a fitness guru. I'm not a happiness guru. I'm more of a happiness guru than anything else, but I try to provide an example of how we move through challenges and meet those challenges in joy instead of judgment. But it doesn't stop the house from burning down, or my father from dying, or, back surgery needing to happen. And I know that if I wrote a book and said, I'm going to teach you how to manifest all the money you've ever wanted, you're going to have the healthiest body ever, you're going to have the greatest sex and the best relationships and the most fun, and you're just going to have a perfect life, I would be a best-selling author. People love to hear that. They want to hear that. But it's not true. Nobody's really accomplishing that.
Great point. So, great way to end the conversation.
It'd be a great way to sell a bunch of books, but unfortunately, I would end up not helping a whole lot of people. So,
well, once again, I'm so glad that you took the time to join us and share all this cool stuff about how life, the universe, and everything works, as you so often have done in the past. One thing I do need to ask you, though, anything particular in the tire world that you should be sharing with everybody to let people know that such and such is happening?
Well, the book is coming out. The Tire Practice book is publishing on November 11th of 2023. So you can go to Amazon right now and you can pre-order the Kindle version. And then I keep saying we're going to start pre-sales of the hardcover, but November's right around the corner. So we'll see. My intention is to release hardcover and Kindle first. So the release date for that is November 11th. We're not changing that. It is. Katarina, my writing partner, is doing all the work now. So back surgery or not, that's all happening. I've done my part for the last 5 years, so I'm done. And then when I recover from my back surgery, I'll be promoting the book everywhere, but it's available now and you can learn.
Is there going to be an audible version?
There'd be a what?
Is there going to be an audible version?
There will. I'll do beginning of next year. I'm going to record audio. I'm going to do the recording of the audio book.
Which is, I think, the way it should be. I think it's always better when the author, assuming that the author isn't monotone and you're not.
Yeah, well, people like my voice, and the podcast is how I know most people, so they're used to hearing my voice, so why not? And most of it's channeled too, so it'll be me reading the stream's words.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an added benefit as far as I'm concerned. But I always think it's better when the author reads his or her own book. I think there's something that comes through in terms of the author's.
Well, the author understands like no one else what's being communicated, and your voice and inflection and all that plays a huge part of it.
Yeah, the energy, I guess, is one thing. There's an energy that comes through when the author reads their own stuff.
Well, and you want to hear from the author too, right? If you really like the author, you want to hear from them. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Very good. Well, thank you once again, David. So glad to have you again. We'll have you back again, I'm sure, at some point, and we'll just continue these fascinating discussions. In the meantime, thank you to all of our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.